Hi, welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. I'm Linda Kenney Baden, and as you know, this is the afternoon session, and we are covering the case of Markeith Loyd, who right now is in the death penalty stage. The state is trying to take his life for the conviction and the killing of the murder of his girlfriend, Sade Dixon, her child, his child, unborn child, the shooting of the brother, the attempted killing of the mother and another brother. Right now on the stand, the state is in a rebuttal case, rebutting the fact that Markeith Loyd, according to the defense, has mental diseases or defects that the jury should consider and not take his life. But Dr. Greg Pritchard, who is a psychologist for the state of Florida, says otherwise. He says Markeith Loyd does not have a psychotic break with reality. We have so much to talk about, and I have the best guest. She is also from New York. She's a prosecutor, so you're going to have my defense aspect. Bernarda Villanova, we have had you on before. We love you here at Law&Crime Network because you give us the real analysis. I had to pull out your sheet, which I'll read like this doctor did. Okay, we'll put away out here. Every single high-profile case in Brooklyn that you could have in Kings County is called, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk real time. This doctor who is testifying on rebuttal here said he is not board certified, which means he doesn't get somebody to say, hey, you're a real expert, the doctors who say you're a real expert. And it's something he didn't, let me get it, I wrote it down. He didn't want or pursue. Did you find that credible, and did the defense attorney explain why that was important to the jury? Two separate questions.
Well, I didn't find him credible.
Okay.
I didn't find it credible. It sounded like, one, no aspirations at all. Two, it was like, maybe I tried, but I just wasn't good enough, so I wasn't going to make it, so I didn't bother to continue. But I think just for the lay person, I think everybody will understand the importance of being board certified, and he's going to be able to expand on it doing closing arguments for this death penalty stage. But the reality is that he just said that he's just a paper person, a paid hand, doesn't know what he's talking about, and he shouldn't be credited as to any of his testimony.
You know, when I was a prosecutor, there was a defense attorney who was absolutely great. He was also very theatrical in court. And when somebody got up and said they were not board certified, he would pull out a rubber glove. I kid you not. He would put it on his hand and he says, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you know what that means? That means if I got a medical degree and went out, I could say I was a proctologist. And he'd hold up his hand with the rubber glove and no one would dispute it. But I could say anything I wanted. And the jury would just go, laugh and guffaw, but kind of made the point, doesn't it?
It's true. It's true. I mean, you haven't undergone any of kind of the test to be able to be acknowledged in the professional realm as someone to be credited.
Okay, so let me just tell you one thing that happened. The state has just rested in this case, so that means they're putting on no more rebuttal witnesses to the defense, who put on a lot of rebuttal witnesses. And let's talk about what Dr. Pritchard said. This morning, there were 3 psychologists and a psychiatrist, 2 psychologists and psychiatrist for Markeith Loyd. There was a neuropsychologist, there was a trauma specialist, and then there was a psychiatrist. They all claimed and they all said that Markeith Loyd suffered from some kind of disability, psychotic break, including which may be paranoid. When you watched Markeith Loyd testify last week, did you as a layperson, forget the doctors, find him paranoid?
Oh, definitely. He definitely came off as paranoid. And the thing is that he actually believed every word he was telling you. Like, he honestly believed what he was saying. And the stuff that he was saying, to me, it was like pure nonsense. Like, what is wrong with you? But he did not come off as someone that's, well, he did come off as someone that was crazy, but I don't think mentally crazy as to get a diagnosis, but more of he's a paranoid person.
So we know in a penalty stage in Florida, which has a lot of death penalty cases, and we've seen them here on Law&Crime Network, gavel to gavel coverage with experts like yourself talking, okay, and giving the truth, the straight truth, as you did earlier here. But when you have a death penalty case, it's an individual juror decision as to whether or not they want to find that there's mitigating factors which can outweigh the aggravating factors, and therefore I'm not going to suggest death. It's not a communal decision, is it?
No, so what's going to happen in this case, first of all, in Florida, it has to be unanimous that every juror agrees that Markeith Loyd deserves the death penalty. So if you have one juror who says there are mitigating factors, then he's not going to get the death penalty. It has to be unanimous.
Well, let me just tell you another piece of information. Guess what? There you see Markeith Loyd, but more importantly, the jury is leaving the courtroom. Closings will be tomorrow morning, and they will be here on the Law&Crime Network. So Bernarda Villanova, you are a great prosecutor, right? and you picked up on something during the break that you told me, but let me just say, in that testimony, this woman who talks about her dad in such loving terms, and then we learned there's a history of schizophrenia, that her brother from her dad also has mental disease. How does that impact the jury, and do you think that it helps or did it hurt the state or the defense in trying to either execute Markeith Loyd or save his life?
I think personally it helped the state because, well, one, the daughter humanizes him. But two, the daughter is telling you how normal and loving Markeith is to her, as well as to her friend Ebony, as well as to her child. So if you're loving and you're warm, you know the difference between right and wrong. So it negates him having some kind of mental disorder. So then it just goes to show you that when he killed Sade and shot her brother, that he knew what he was doing. So it goes more for aggravating factors as opposed to mitigating factors. Markeith is capable of being a good, law-abiding person, so he's not psychotic, aside from being paranoid.
Well, let's see in the next clip that the daughter testifies on, Kiana testifies, to try to save her dad's life, whether we have a change of opinion or a confirmation. Well, I am conflicted. Bernardo Villanova, sorry, but I'm just so upset. I don't even know what to say. I see two different people here. Markeith Loyd, the killer, who's paranoid, and then I listened to his daughter, Kiana, talking about how he told the granddaughter that she's smart and smart people make smart choices and he's always there for them. What's going on here?
See, the reality is, Linda, is that you see this in pretty much all of our cases. In all of our violent cases, our homicide cases, shooting cases, that there are two sides to every individual. But the problem is that nice side is not the one that was there on the time when the crime was committed. You know, what's really hurtful about these cases is that when a person is found guilty, like Markeith was, he's going to go to jail or he's either going to be killed, is that it affects not just Markeith Loyd, but it affects the family. So here you have the daughter and her child, so the granddaughter, that's going to be affected by the decisions that Markeith Loyd made on that day. So what they're going to remember and what they're going to miss is all these nice times that they had, but it's all been taken away because of the actions of Markeith Loyd.
Now, the aggravating factors here, there's two for killing Sade Dixon. That is, he was on probation at the time of the killing, and also he has the prior felony conviction for assaulting an officer, for which he did over a decade in jail. And with the unborn child, there's a third aggravating factor, and that's the child was under the age of 12. To me, those are obviously easily proved. There's no issue about those. But when the defense presents a case, they can actually, on the death penalty side, say there's other reasons just to keep him alive, correct?
Correct. They can come up with a number of reasons, all mitigating factors. It doesn't have to be necessarily the ones that are assigned by law, but testimony like this can assist and be like, you know what, he's worth keeping alive. He's worth saving this life because of the personality that he has, how he is with his kids. Because remember, you just need one person to be like, you know what, I am touched by the testimony of the daughter and how they'll be affected if the life of this man is taken away.
Well, you know what, it's just been, even watching from afar, Bernardo, it is really tragic, and it's got me all tied up here. We're going to take a quick break while that's happening, try to compose ourselves, and we will be back. Okay, Bernardo, walk me through this. I'm not I'm not obviously, I don't condone anything that Markeith Loyd did. I would have convicted him in, like, give me a New York minute, maybe a New York second, okay? But I do think the defense is putting up an interesting case here. But talk to me about the fact that he was in prison for over a decade, and I'm not hearing whether or not there was any disease or defect or psychiatric or psychological or mental health services in prison. Are you?
I'm not hearing anything, and that's what I'm really curious about. I want to know whether he was ever diagnosed or treated for any kind of mental illness, or whether this is something that he's coming up right now with in order to avoid the death penalty. I want to know his past history. Is this something that's happening now because you're reporting it because you want to avoid the death penalty, or do you really have a history of mental health health illness that you can document from years in the past, especially since we know that he was in custody for over a decade.
Right.
Because if you have a mental health illness, especially if you're in custody, you will be getting treatment while in custody. I haven't heard any of that.
Or at least there'll be some incidents which would indicate the paranoia, correct? Because as he said, when we watched him testify, what makes him so dangerous is that he believes people are assaulting him. I mean, when you watch him, you say, oh my God, I believe that he believes what he's saying.
Exactly, because he says it with such a matter of fact, like, this is what's going on. He says it so confident that you have to ask yourself, wait, hold up, did it actually happen that way? Is that what he's seeing? Because he's so credible in his paranoia.
And in here, of course, according to Dr. Pritchard, he said, well, he may have had paranoia, but I don't agree with it. But if he does, it's delusional paranoia. It's cultural, not real. Can you understand the difference, whether it's cultural or not real, whether that has to do with anything?
Cultural paranoia, I want to call BS on it. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're trying to say because he is black and based on his black experience, he is paranoid, but culturally paranoid. What is that? What are we talking about?
Well, yeah, they mentioned something about, he didn't trust the police, which we all know. That's true, and he probably didn't with good cause, and this doctor agrees with that. But the people that were the victims in this case, his girlfriend, the unborn child, the brother, they're black.
100%. That's why I'm like, okay, so I will agree with you and concede that Markeith did not trust law enforcement. Okay, that's fine. I agree with you on that fact. But Sade wasn't a cop. Her brother wasn't a cop. Like, you are hitting people that are close to you, regular civilians. So what does your distrust for cops have to do with you killing 2 innocent people? Actually, 3 people.
So if you put him in prison and you say his life is worth saving because he's got the daughter, he's got the mother, they shouldn't be further victims of what he did, and you put him in prison, is there a way to control this paranoia that we all agree that he suffers from, except for Dr. Pritchard, who says he doesn't suffer from paranoia, which I disagree with, but that's me. I'm here.
Okay. I mean, it's very dangerous to put someone who has this paranoia like Markeith, because the reality is that he thinks everybody is out to get him. And now you're going to put him in an institution full of other people that have been convicted or awaiting trial on majority of the cases, violent cases. So now you are putting him and closing him in an environment where he probably thinks everybody's out to get him.
Well, this is going to be really interesting because tomorrow the lawyers are going to sum up in the penalty stage, because we know he's already been convicted of the homicides. In the penalty stage, we will see whether or not the jury then, once they go and deliberate tomorrow, will decide Markeith Loyd's life is willing to save or whether he will be sent to the death penalty. Stay with us.